Welcome back to the Good AP Times podcast presented by Factura AI and today also presented by HIA Software. So excited to have Chip Fritsch here joining us. And he is a co founder and COO of HIA Software. Really, you guys are the ERP platform purpose built for the hotel and hospitality industry, which is amazing. Yep, what's cool about your background, from what I can tell, is that you came into the software really from operations. You were a hotel general manager for many years, operator for many years, and you spent a ton of time in that full service kind of role. You've run, I'm assuming you've seen everything inside, outside, all around. And so and I correct me if I'm wrong here, but HIA is a pretty family run business. You guys decided to build something better and now here we are. So Chip, I am so excited to have you here joining us today and tell us a little bit about kind of HIA software for any of our listeners who don't know anything about it.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Happy to be here. And yeah, so actually, it was a father-son inception originally, but with more family influence because
Okay.
we we've been in the hotel world for pretty much 30 years now with MBA hotel brokers and me, capital finance, and that the being on the brokerage side of the hotel business for years led us to looking at a lot of P&Ls and doing a lot of, market studies and even before we got into operations. So we actually ended up buying one of the hotels that we had listed for sale and running that. And that's how I got into operations
Thrusted
after,
into it.
yeah, after, working in high school and college in the brokerage business. I ended up going out and working in a full service hotel, kind of working my way up through doing everything from front desk sales, AGM and GM, and at with some family influence, I always felt I had to work 10 times harder than I probably needed to, uh, just to putting in yeah, a lot of very long days just because you know, really wanted to fully immerse myself in the business and prove that out. So, but it was a lot of fun being in operations, but there's um there's a little bit more of a steady schedule being on the software side at times.
I can only imagine. And I think, you started off looking at a lot of P&Ls brings us kind of to some of our topic for today, which is what can hospitality finance teams teach everyone about efficiency, right? Operational efficiency. And you said you stare at a lot of P&Ls. We look at a lot of data points. And I think we sometimes, you and I before this started, were laughing about sometimes overly obsessed about how to pinch a dollar to save a penny. Um, you came out of this operations to, before building HIA. What problems kept showing up that convinced you that something needed to change?
For us, it was some of the tech itself. We had been when we got the hotel, it was running mass 90, and even at the time, that was, ancient for as ancient can be. And you still see a lot of old tech in the hotel space. I mean,
Yeah.
Marriott's changing, and I don't want to talk too much because they're a great firm, but we all know some of the if you've worked front desk at certain hotel chains, are we working Blockbuster in the 90s? So but the system worked and it worked pretty well. But they're undergoing a huge change and modernization. This is they're doing a lot of transitions with their Agile Assist and Power BIM systems. And so we're seeing that. But for us in operations and what we were seeing and speaking to owners about was the systems didn't want to talk to each other, right? And for us back then, it was also a lot of manual entry and manual calculations. And I mean, this hotel when we got it, it was, I mean, you're talking physical punch card, punch in and out. We digitized that, we did biometric. So, it was just updating and modernizing. And that kind of led us into finding out like where not just that hotel, but other hotels needed to modernize their software stack and their enterprise stack. And we just kind of lived it for a little while. And he really struggled to find something that was going to meet our need because there was like mass overkill with Oracle, and then some other systems that we looked at, but just weren't going to be a good fit for us at the time for various reasons. And so we kind of shelved it for a few years, and then had an opportunity to circle back to it and kick that off in 2015.
That's so exciting. It's funny, a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about how things that restaurants can learn from hotels. And I think one thing that we brought up was that hotels were first to realize that they needed tech to help with operational efficiency, but then it kind of like stopped there a little bit, and then as tech evolved, they didn't continue to evolve with the tech. And I think one of the biggest areas that you see, as you mentioned it, was that systems don't talk to each other. Why do you see so many organizations struggle with visibility, even though they probably have more systems and dashboards than ever? Do you think it is that kind of lack of communication, or is it almost that there is a overwhelm of knowledge that they don't know where to look 100% when it comes to visibility?
Yeah, I think you kind of just answered it right then. Um, it's there's when you're managing an operation with a bunch of disparate systems, right? You're either trying to normalize and synchronize the data. You're trying to figure out, all right, what system do I need to log in to find what metric? Or then how do I compile it into one unified centralized dashboard, which is also a little bit of the emphasis of why we created the HIA, to do that,
Yeah,
to be, an all-in-one backend ERP, so that we can be the system of record that the go-to source. So,
yeah,
where we're pulling you're not having to log into necessarily your PMS system, see your day over day revenue, because we're pulling that in, after night audit, we're showing that and then we're bringing that in from a portfolio basis. But then we can also pull in your labor metrics, right? So you're not having to log in your time and attendance system or waiting 2 weeks till payroll hits, as we're pulling that punch data in at the end of the day. So you can then start running CPOR metrics and day over day metrics. You're not waiting, you know, and also what led us into this journey was we were doing a lot of rear view mirror like analysis of, we should have changed that, we should have changed that, not we need to change this now, and
yeah.
kind of react. So it was trying to get out of, hindsight and into kind of like real time adjustments is what we found we needed to do. And so dashboards are all well and good, but I think one of the things that, and I think that we don't really need more dashboards, right? In
Yeah.
some cases, I think we kind of need less.
Mhm.
And dashboards can be, dashboards that show you all really great positive numbers. Those are fun. They give you a nice little dopamine kick, right? They're like, yeah, I did a good job. I'm killing it. I'm crushing it. Great. Those are ones that you want to look at for the feel good moments, but those aren't the most important ones. The most important ones are the ones that are screaming in red, flashing icons and saying, "Hey, we're off basis here. Like we're not pacing to our transient revenue or a group revenue or something. And where are we going to make this up, or how do we need to make an adjustment because we just got a cancellation. The soccer team got knocked out. We just lost 50 rooms for the night. Okay, yeah, we have a cancellation clause, but that's, whatever the revenue is, it's not going to make up the full amount, right? So
Yeah.
how do we go and make that up, or how do we need to adjust our schedule moving forward to account for that? Or you've been purchasing food in anticipation of a heavy F&B weekend at the hotel. So there's a lot of adjustments that you have to make there. And Elon Musk even said that, being and he's not by any means or measure my icon at this stage, but the quote holds true. You know, when you're an executive, the thing that you actually need to focus on are all the problems. So you're just living the problem child status forever,
Yeah.
because that's what you actually have to fix for your business, right? The feel good moments are great, and we need those in order to stay in the game and keep your mentality up. But what you actually have to focus on are those yellow and the red. Where are we veering off, and where are we not hitting the mark?
I think you made a good point, and we talk about this a lot with the proactive versus reactive, right? So much of the hospitality, restaurants, hotels, all the above have lived in reactive moment. That's where standard of norm has always been, right? Is that reactive, very delayed when we talk about getting things like P&Ls month after the period closes. We're talking about a variety of things there. And so uh, I think like how if you were to step into an operator's shoes, besides obviously focusing on tech, how do you make that mindset shift? How do you make that mindset shift to be focused more on the proactive versus being constantly reactive?
It's not an easy answer because it's something that I still even struggle with today in tech, right? It's the I think one of the healthy things I have always found is, and I find this most when I go and travel to a conference because it forces you to step away. I think the best and only way for anyone to do this, whether it's you're in tech operations or anything, is to take a step back and really take that mile high view because that's when everyone knows what they need to focus on. But we're all so busy in the day to day. And I think we all inherently almost take on a firefighting mentality a lot of the times. And we just want to run from problem to problem and trying to focus on it. But when you're, and I think there's a case of needing some distance in order
Yeah,
to focus on that. So whether that's you go, if you're in operations, you're on-prem. There's no remote work in the hotel operations for the most part, or unless you're a regional ops manager or something else like that. But if you're like a hotel GM on the scene, you need to go take some time away. You need to go work from home and just, you know, plan out, schedule out, and plan it because if you're on prem, you're gonna fall back into those habits of jumping in, doing your checklist and your tasks, or you're gonna get pulled by with the one of a million things that are
yeah,
screaming attention. And it's same thing that I find in tech. It's when I'm forced to not be at my computer all the time that or I'm traveling or doing something, you kind of you give yourself the mental bandwidth to think about something else. And I don't know, taking a step back, it's the only only answer I kind of have
yeah,
there. That it's a challenge, and you're gonna find yourself doing it again. It's a rinse and repeat scenario because you're constantly gonna find yourself getting deeper, 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 and then you got to pull
yeah,
yourself back out again.
yeah. Um, Bringing that up too, like, I think in a somewhat recent writing you've done, you talked a little bit about how finance teams are kind of waiting for AI to solve problems that really require some better foundation and more unified data first. We see it constantly when we talk to people that try to slap tech or AI on top of bad data. How much of a problem do you see really bad data creating the biggest headaches for finance teams?
Uh, I mean, yeah, it's a problem. And I think everyone's looking at AI like a magic pill. And I think the
Yeah.
thing to remember is it's still programmatic, it's machine learning. It's not as subjective as the human squishy, mentality. It's
It's not emotionally right. It's not
no,
going to be emotionally right.
and it doesn't always have. And I mean, we're in hospitality, right? There's a set the sentiment, and we use in our GSS product, we have sentiment analysis. We're
Mhm.
reading, we're saying the tone is this way, that way, and these are some corrective actions that you should do. But in hospitality is how you come across. What warmth, what persona and feeling are we trying to extend to the guest? And so the hard logic answer to some things isn't always there. And so I think we were talking before this about, pinching a penny to save a dollar and all these things. But um, going back to AI, if you don't have cleared SOPs, you don't have good procedures, AI is not going to solve that. And if you have inconsistent and especially inconsistency in how you're entering the data, how is this thing going to aggregate or normalize that? And maybe it can, but it's going to be
Yeah.
really expensive to do because you're going to have to sit there and you're going to do this, read that report, and this happened to me earlier today. Hey, you forgot to do this thing. You're doubling the numbers. Can you go fix this? So it is really, and there's all these things that people are saying about, building different prompts and libraries and co-working. and there's ways, but I think the thing people have to do first and foremost is get a system that's going to allow them to unify their data at the start. So, like HIA, we operate off a global chart of accounts. We off a global vendor list. So everyone's operating off the same data set to begin with, same parameters. You're not calling something one code or one description in property A, B, or C, then trying to normalize. That's part of the migration process and of all right, how to unify your data first and foremost. Let the machine learning have clear and consistent data sets to extrapolate from, and then you can start getting somewhere. Brad and I talked about this a few years ago about a client. They were like, we need to do a a chicken breast analysis, for all of our restaurants, like 4 over 6,000, all these things. But if you're using, different descriptions, large it's very subjective.
Yeah, and I think that's so true when it comes to hospitality, right? If you think about, um, I can never say this word. It's like called concatenation, I believe is what it is in the restaurants. I always struggle with that word. And it's the aspect of if I want to add a pizza and I want to add pepperoni and the pizza's small and I want to add a pepperoni on half or all or whatever, right? All of that really being separate buttons, separate, etc., can cause a complete mess when it comes on the back end of your data, which I can only imagine gets worse the more items you start to add when it comes to the hotel world, right? Is it this? Is it that? As we think about bars are really prominent when it comes to that level. So absolutely, you have to kind of have a general baseline. Um, what problems do you think some finance leaders should actually focus on before they start worrying about trying to take that kind of AI magic pill?
I think understanding what they actually want first and foremost. I talk to a lot of, finance leaders, and a lot of times we're in an implementation or onboarding process and we're trying to determine what they want. And then you have a lot of intercompany debate about what the goals or processes, procedures, or desired outcomes should be. And I think clearly defining and then working backwards from the outcome you want, and then starting from there. What are the key data points that are required to get you that outcome? A lot of time, and more data does not equal better data. And I think that's a common misconception that one wants to throw more data points at a problem. And sometimes that is actually just going to cause you a ton of additional noise. And you need to drill down to what are the core and key components causing your problem or the outcomes that you need? What are the things that you can change that make a meaningful difference? And I think that's the key, the meaningful, right? Because again, the penny for a dollar,
Yeah.
I can make all these little changes and it's going to get me, 1% change. But if I do this one thing, maybe it's getting me a 5 to 7 or 10% change. What are the meaningful outcomes that you can cause?
Yeah, I've trained people to learn about the restaurant and hospitality industry, and I always jokingly say there's at least a few fires happening in the back kitchen, and
Both
someone's gonna
metaphorical and literal.
metaphorical and literal, uh, and everyone's going to think of one of the fires is more important and bigger, and not a single person's gonna have the same belief of which fire is more important. And so it's really understanding, like you said, what fire really is going to make the biggest impact and improve, and putting out one fire might fix another fire, etc.
Well, I think that goes into the taking a step back, right?
Yeah.
'Cause if you're in that kitchen dodging pans from your executive chef, or dealing, neck deep in a dishwasher that's broken or malfunctioning, which, let's be honest, that's what GMs and restaurant managers are literally doing. They're on the expediting line, and they're managing relationship disputes between two of their employees that you never wanted to even know about. And I think that's where hospitality is just a little bit different. Like it's a weird, wonderful, wild, crazy fun world, but chaotic.
Yeah. You're our first guest that's really heavy in the hotel industry, right? We've been pretty heavy in restaurants and other industries. What is one thing that people from the outside looking in need to understand about hotel finances or even operations?
I mean, well, the first and foremost thing, everyone from the outside, I'm going to call Marriott corporate. You know, most hotels are franchised. They're independently operated, and so every organization, every structure is a little bit different. They're, whether their ownership, they're third party managed. So everyone has their own unique flair and or processes and what works for them. Because again, we're everyone thinks the finances is just numbers, is processes, but it's the humans that interact with that, and it's the workflow, the processes. And I know Timmy works best from, he likes to work in the evenings or nights. So you just have to set expectations for work and when things are going to get done and processes and knowing your organization and the quirks, the benefits, the skill sets, and assigning the roles to people that are really going to work well, both whether it's operations or finance, right? What are the strengths? I don't think there's usually any real duds in an organization because I think hotel finance teams generally are pretty good about figuring it out because hotels and hospitality we don't have no one has the margins for duds.
Yeah.
So it's everyone's going to have a skill set and an understanding of workflow and making sure that your processes work within that scope.
I'm gonna use that from now on. There's no margins for duds. I love that. It's true because we hospitality as a whole works on paper thin margins. And we've talked a lot about how to best support your people and how to best support your operations. And we talk a lot about this from an AI perspective too. Where do you think AI will create the most practical value over the next few years when it comes to either processes or people?
I think it's going to help with repetitive workflows, right? It's going to so like we're rolling out, at High Tech, we announced, 4 big AI initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So, both, I think it's anomaly detection. What did we forget? You can have all the work papers, processes, checklists in the world, but you still have to make sure you're following. And after a certain time, we all forget to go back because we just have it ingrained in our head, right? And so it's going to be, what did you forget? Or I was typing in, I was eating lunch because who takes a real break for lunch? So you're working over lunch and you're eating your salad or whatever you're doing, and you have a typo and you don't catch it and you move on. But the anomaly detection is going to say, hey, this is outside of 2 deviation points, and it's going to flag it and you should review it. Or it's going to be, you know, the sentiment analysis and guest satisfaction, right? It's
Yeah.
the saying, hey, you're starting one. We all read reviews, and sometimes they're fun, they're funny, or they're heartwarming, and like, oh my gosh, right? It's there's things that are truly heartbreaking when you have hotels in areas where housekeepers are going to spend time on a personal one-on-one basis because somebody's going through something really really hard, and then you have the people that just want to vent and complain, but then you have the actual serious issues that somebody
Yeah.
had a truly horrible experience, but I think also society has stopped bringing those to direct one-on-one confrontation. So now we just take it out and we post it all online. So the sentiment analysis is helps kind of normalize that and give you like read through that and really bring to your attention what you need to focus on or what's a potential trend. You see this one thing, okay, you see another thing, and then you might forget that there's a trend and how that affects everything. So I think AI is going to help people bring back bring them back to finding their errors. What did they forget? What is outside the norm? Because sometimes it's so easy, especially with scope creep, things start creeping up, 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 and up, and it can alert you that hey, this is a lot higher than it used to be. Like, what's going on here? Do you need to renegotiate your contract? Do you need to go find a new vendor? It's like car insurance. If you're not changing every year and a half, you're probably overpaying, right? Same thing can happen in vendor structures. So I think it's just helping us stay as current in catching our own things that we've maybe just become kind of a little bit null.
Yeah, I love that. Keeping us the sharpest we can be.
Yeah.
That's a great way of
It's not
thinking
gonna
about it.
replace it's not gonna replace human cognitive functions. It's not. And I mean, you're seeing a lot of articles now about how, oh, AI is actually more expensive, in some
Yeah.
cases for some industries. And so but it's going to be finding the balance. How do you help augment your team? So Megan's not working, 11 hours a day to close on the second or third of the month. How do you make that a more enjoyable work life balance experience?
Love that. I also think we talk a lot about how, especially in restaurants and in hotels and everything in hospitality, there's a level of keeping AI to the guest, like away from the guest experience and on the things that keep staff away from the guest experience, right? AI is able to keep the tasks at bay so that you as the staff can spend more time on the customer experience. I think that's a level that we try to focus on a lot in this industry.
I think so. I mean, there's also going to be eventually a fine line between privacy and AI,
Yes.
and there's that will come to a head more and more. I personally think, you're especially, somebody just rolled out, new wearable glasses, right? Okay, it's not that much cheaper, but still, there was, a hospitality industry figure that then said, "Great, we want to embed wearable glasses into our front desk staff so we can do facial recognition, see who the guest is while walking up. So by the time you get to the desk, you say, 'Hey, Megan, how are you? I've booked you.'
Yeah.
And that's all really well, but there's also a sense then if you think back, if you want to go movie nerd, you go to was it Minority Report, and right, he walks into what, the Gap or Old Navy or something, and it's like, hey, last time you bought some sweaters, we got our new sweaters right over here. And that's happening to us online as it is. The cookies,
Yeah.
the happening. You go and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm on Amazon. I was just talking about it, and it showed me exactly what I was talking about." It's actually not, well, probably not listening to you to offer those things, but it's inferring from your search behavior and everything that you're doing online, right? So it's happening, but it's maybe perhaps more subtle than being greeted by name in a building you've never, or a hotel you've only visited once before. It's not like you're now, if you're a regular at a restaurant or a bar and you're
Yeah.
coming in every Tuesday, or you've been on long-term contract, and which happens a lot in hotels, that you have somebody gets familiar, it's their second home, right?
Yeah.
And you've got this, "Hey, Jeff, great to see you again," and you have the key ready, the favorite room and all that. That's great. That's hospitality, that's personality. But if I've never met you before in my life, it's where does that line come in?
It's actually funny that it has me thinking of, does it almost take away the specialness that you brought up, right? If everyone gets greeted by their name, it takes away that level of like special, like you just said, that I am a regular here. I come here often. You know, my family goes on a trip around the same time every year. When we check in, they say, "We're so happy to have you back this year." Like there's a level of special that brings. Do you think the AI in the customer facing side is going to devalue the specialness of the other version?
I don't think it necessarily has to. I think if it's done incorrectly, it can. But
Okay.
like, just to your point, um, one of my team members and I 2 years ago were before we closed a client, Mohawk Mountain House up in the Catskills.
Yeah.
We were having breakfast in their grand restaurant, which overlooks the Catskills. Is beautiful. It's a rustic, historic, 150 something odd year old resort, and it's
Yeah.
great. And the server there was talking to a guest that had literally been going there like 20 years. That server's been there for 15 years. They come and they spend a week to 2 weeks every year. But that server knew them and they were just chatting like they were old friends, right? That's that hospitality. That's a personal experience. But if that's, I've never met you before and you're acting like we're old friends, like, is that just like, what experience does that, to your point? How does that make you feel? Is that then just, we've all been in, doing chit chat for chit chat's sake, right? And does it just feel like an obligation for that engagement versus a genuinely warm
It
uh
it kills the
scenario?
authenticity of it a little
So
bit.
I again, I think it's going to be really, it can be helpful to keep people reminded, but you can't you can everyone's going to have to be aware to not abuse that information or that power. for good or bad, and that's on the guest facing side, right?
Yeah.
So we all get the text messages from Hilton or Marriott, "Hey, how's your stay going?" and things like that, but which is fine, but it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That's so funny. All right, so let's kind of do some hot take as I feel like we've been talking about a little bit of a hot take with AI, but what do you think is something some hospitality operators spend way too much money or time on that rarely delivers the ROI they expect?
that's a dangerous one. Is this one that can get me in trouble, right?
All right, we can cut it out.
But
It's totally
but,
fine.
I think sometimes that's the hot new single-use tool, right? And whatever that is, if the iPad check-in kiosk
Yeah.
or any of those things that you still need the front desk agent, right? And it's
Yeah.
just and how much are you actually solving? How many, especially when you can check in on your mobile device before you show up. So, but it's the single-use tools that aren't inexpensive. They sound like inexpensive add-ons, but they're not truly that inexpensive when you're not truly saving things, right? I want you to spend money on things that enhance your portfolio, whether that's a software that saves you time, energy, effort, and labor on the finance side. If it's going to save your housekeepers some back breaks, it's going to save you an insurance claim. It's going to enhance your employee satisfaction is almost just as important as your guest satisfaction. Because if your employees and operations aren't happy, they're not going to deliver, a good guest experience. So I want you to buy something that is not just a single use tool. I want you to buy something that's going to be cohesive or really plug in. Because a lot of times the single use tools don't interface.
All right, so let's flip that question the other way around. What is something that hospitality operators often forget about or don't spend enough money on that deliver a ton of ROI, or something small that delivers a ton of ROI?
Sometimes it's probably taking a step back, focusing on your processes, your procedures, and your workflows. And again, it's not always doing things because that's just the way we've done it. So taking a step back and looking at your processes, your procedures from a holistic approach, I think, and it's not really a tech solution. It's going back to the human component. It's how does our team work and why are we doing this and what are again the outcome that we want and what do we need to get here and what steps are we doing that maybe we can condense, compress, or eliminate with whether that's software or workflows.
Love that. I love that. All right, finish this sentence. Finance teams don't need another dashboard. They need blank.
Finance teams don't need another dashboard. I know to our point earlier about a pat on the back. They don't need to see that we're crushing it, we're killing it. That's fun. That's great. They need to see what's going to become a problem. They already know what is a problem, or what they likely know or should know what is a problem. But what is going to become a problem if we don't catch it and make corrections? So it's the that flashing dashboard, flashing red icon or yellow warning sign, danger Will Robinson that we need to start focusing on this issue
Yeah.
before it's a runaway train.
I think that's huge because there's so much on hospitality's plates. To be able to catch something ahead of time oftentimes allows us to fix a problem way easier than if something was to become a full-blown fire. And like you said in the beginning, we've talked a lot about being proactive versus reactive. If we could just get everybody to start to making that shift, we would all be mentally in a better place, less burnout, less exhaustion, be able to focus on that guest experience. You've mentioned it all kind of throughout here, which is huge. I think there's a level of efficiency when it comes to operations that we have to really get better on about, like you said, with your guys' new anomaly detector and a lot of AI tools that can help with that. But that's really the key focus there.
Yeah, I mean, the burnout is real in any industry, but especially hospitality. I mean, uh, it's real. It's real.
I remember I was in event management for a very long time, and I used to always laugh and say your smile after a while hurts because you feel like you're smiling and there's like that muscle. So the brain, the smile, the burnout from all of that, let alone having to deal with fires that keep smiling is so as far as you can go, right? Is a little bit of where you can go. All right. Last question before we jump into the fun kind of rapid fire that goes into, you know, HIAs come in to do amazing things that you guys are doing. But besides going and saying, hey, buy our software, what is something that you would tell a restaurant finance or a hotel finance or a hotel operator, hey, like, if you want to get better tomorrow, this is my one piece of advice.
Don't focus on the exceptions. Focus on the normal workflows. I see a lot of bad policies created because usually it's sometimes out of, an employee theft situation or
Yep.
a fraud issue or scenario. And yeah, there's after one of those events, you definitely need to look at your controls and maybe you need to change some things, but always focus on the 90-10 or 80-20 rules. Like, what are you need the auditing, you need whether it's, digital audit trail, who did what, so you can manage it. But if you start trying to lead from the 1% and control things from the 1% scenario, you're going to bog yourself down in laborious workflows and processes, and you're just going to grind things to a halt. And it causes a lot of frustration with teams and frustration for your software partners that are asked to implement these. And then people get frustrated with those said steps very quickly. And so is that take a step back, look at your workflows, make sure that you're covered, make sure that you're accounting for the standard operating and processes. Now, put the controls in place so if something does happen, you have the back, you have the proof, and you can isolate it and find that issue quickly, hopefully before it becomes a problem. But I
I
think,
love that.
yeah,
I love that. The and ifs, like don't focus on the and ifs, which so many of us do. We try to go, if this happens, then this, and then if this happens, we have to do this. That's a huge thing. All right, we're now into the fun of rapid fire questions.
okay.
All right. Front of house, housekeeping, night audit, or F&B, which role are you taking if you had to jump back in tomorrow?
I mean, probably F&B or front desk if it's not like a GM role, because a GM role or a GM role, you kind of get to do all of it,
You're doing
right?
it all.
You do it all, and that was one of the fun things that I tried to spend at least a couple hours of my day just walking around, talking to my team, and going to rooms and spending time in the kitchen and things because you're hearing those things, directly, and it also keeps you very intimately aware of the processes and the workflows and the underlying issues. When we're on the finance side, we're looking at numbers and we're forgetting the work that's going into it and what those costs on the spreadsheet actually are, right? That's that's your team working 20 hours a week at, a nominal-ish wage, right? That's it's what is because the number one controllable thing is always labor. And
Yeah.
but if you don't have, and you have to control labor, but it's controlling it in a way that your team understands and can live, and work with. So,
Yeah. In our last podcast, Jake was saying you build your process and then you hand the process over and see how people actually use it. And I love that, especially from like a GM and AM. A lot of times you got to be in the mix of things to see how you might go, well, this is the process on paper. This is how they're actually doing the process and go, wait, that was not my intentions, right?
right.
Which is great. Okay. Favorite hotel lobby in the world. You already talked about the gorgeous Catskills, but favorite hotel lobby in the world.
So I think this is actually just going to be any hotel lobby that's super welcoming, right? One that you feel is comfortable. It's not there, and again, I don't want to get in trouble, sterile, and
Yeah.
but it's going to have a little bit of that local vibe. It's gonna feel like you're okay to sit down and hang out for a little bit. So um, there's a Hotel Monaco in Baltimore, right? It's not even the lobby, but it's an old B&O building, and they've got these marble staircases going up to the lobby. It's super fun. They've got old brass mail chutes and stuff. So it's fun, and they can play off of it. the big plush chairs that you can sit in, and it's an environment that you're going to hang out in. Or, it's the Graduate in Providence, Rhode Island, that just have funky big round chairs and little nooks and corners that you're going to sit and hang out in. And it's going to be a vibe. It's not just an entryway or a vestibule, right? It's a vibe.
And before this podcast started, you and I were talking about having young boys who like to turn everything. And my always fear is that when we walk into a hotel that my son, I'm like, please don't break anything, right? That's like my number one fear. So when it feels like he's welcome too, right? There's a level of that. There is a hotel in Savannah, unofficially called the Dinosaur Hotel, but it's the JW Marriott Riverside. And my favorite thing is the fact that they've become aware that it is this great, I mean, it's a museum, right? The lobby is a museum. There's a dinosaur skeleton right in the floor when you walk in. It's amazing. And my son thought it was the coolest thing ever. But it was even better is the minute he walked in, they handed him a like, go find all these dinosaurs on the floor, which was just instantly as a parent, you go, this feels welcoming. So I love that.
And if
Um,
we have time, I'll just add that I like a hotel lobby that's welcoming to everyone, not just guests, right? I want a hotel
yeah.
lobby that is almost like, and this is probably applies more to full service than select service, but hotel lobbies that you're okay to just, you're a local, you can go in, you can hang out, and you're probably going to go into the food and beverage operations and feel that, and it just becomes, you know, a a venue in and of itself sometimes.
Warm hug, a good warm
Yeah.
hug. Okay, one hotel hack for travelers.
So there's always going to be Instagram hacks on all this and stuff. My hack is going to be super silly simple. Talk to your staff. Talk to the front desk. You want something, go talk to them. You want something, don't write a request. They're going to read the request on your comment card when you submit it, your reservation. Call the front desk. Talk to the agents. They're going to want to help you, right? And if you don't get the answer you want before you're checking in, accept it, understand it. They're working within their parameters. But when you check in, hey, I asked about this before I get that it wasn't available then. Is it available now? What can we do? So talk to them just and the you know, and it's always and then one of my pet peeves almost is like if you give me the top restaurant on Yelp or something when look, I don't want that. Where I can get that myself, right? Where do you want to go and hang out when you get off work, right? So it's go talk to the staff. You want something, ask for it.
I love that. Don't yeah, absolutely. What's something you believed 20 years ago about hospitality that you've completely changed your mind on now?
That's a tough one. Because the general rules of hospitality still stand true regardless over time, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of hospitality principles. You look at like the Walt Disney and their teachings, and do what you have to. And there's certain organizations that say, and there's certain hotel chains that a housekeeper has the authority to go and do certain things for a
Yeah.
guest to make that guest stay, right? And I love that, and I think that holds true. But there's obviously controls and costs, and you have to be able to justify it, right? So I don't think my mindset on that has changed so much. It it's always been a debate of and the quote is always misquoted, the guest is always right, right? The
Yeah.
guest is not and to their own opinion, of course, right?
Right.
The full quote. And they are entitled to their own opinion, but it's coming to common ground with the guest, I think, is the hardest thing that we're ever gonna have to do. So mindset is we can't always just bend over for the guests. It's finding what works for both parties as much as.
And I think my previous question about we talked about Instagram hacks and all that stuff, and then when you come to it, it's what might be something true for like the amount of people that go into hotels because they saw something on Instagram and they're like, well, this is what you should be. And then the hotel's like, no, that's not true. It might have been XY or, variety of things. I think we all have to realize that you need to be in the moment more than anything else. Like be in the moment and know that they're always going to do what's best for you and you should be doing what's best for them. I think that's absolutely true.
I'd also say don't try to get anything over on the hotel, right? Don't
Yeah.
try to get anything over on the restaurant. Saying it's your birthday is that's pretty harmless, but like don't try to pull a trick or like the airline hack of I'm getting the the 3 seats for free type thing. Look, we society works when we all work together, and I think that works in hospitality. The hotels want to help you as long as you want to have a nice, pleasant stay as well.
I love that. Well, last chip, tell us a little bit about HIA software. Like what do for all of our listeners who don't know, this is the time for you to sell a little bit about what you do. So tell us a little bit, just kind of if people are curious what you guys do and how they can find out more information about you.
Yeah, so HIA was a purpose-built hospitality accounting or ERP. I think more people are learning that term now. ERP's tool to be, as much of an all-in-one solution as we can be, but also finding that we work, try to go out and work with best-in-class partners like Factor AI for invoice automation processing and some workflows because some teams don't want everyone in the accounting platform. So that's where a tool like Factura can really have good interplay because you can let some of your ops team get in, do invoice approvals and things that pushes into HIA
Yeah.
without them necessarily having to be in HIA, right? So we're both an accounting based ERP or platform with a secondary focus on business intelligence operations, focusing on labor analytics, how your finances overlay with your operations and your labor stats metrics, both, and then blending that with your guest satisfaction reviews, and helping you track, analyze, and respond to your online presence. So that's the 10-second nutshell. HIAsoftware.com. Catch us at a trade show, but we'd love to chat.
Yeah, I mean, we've loved having you as a partner. We've done so many great things together over the years, and so loved having you on. Really appreciate all of this and hope that some of our listeners either learned something new about efficiency or gave themselves a ability to say, "Yes, Chip told me to take a step back and look at things from a high level, so I'm gonna take a step back and look at things from a high level and feel better about the fires that are burning and how I can put them
There's
out faster."
Yeah, there's a LinkedIn article last year I think I did that had a few comments. It kind of on that. Like we get so focused on doing the housekeeping work at yourself as a GM and
Yeah.
and spending working the expediting line instead of focusing on the business. You're trying to solve, a $10 problem when you need to be solving the 10,000.
Well, I love that. I'm really hopeful that our listeners got something out of today. I'm so excited that they get to learn about HIA software. Like I said, you've been an amazing partner for Factura. Um, and we're just thrilled. So thank you again so much. And to all our listeners, the link to learn more from Chip and all that he posts on that's great from LinkedIn to learn more about HIA software is going to be on our descriptions and below. And tune in next week for our next episode. Thank you again, Chip.
Thanks, Megan. Have a great day.